Hi, I'm Glenn Pearson, and I'm here with installment number 7 in my video series based on my book, Thriving in the Healthcare Market, Strategies from an Industry Insider for Selling Your Product. The book came out last fall. It was published by CRC Press in association with the Health Information Management Systems Society, or HIMSS. The book has 84 pitfalls that I've seen trip up vendors as they try to sell their products into healthcare. And I've been going through one at a time, the most significant ones starting out with. And I'm up to number 7 in the series right now. And today I'm actually going to be talking about pitfall number 54. Before I do that, I wanted to mention that this information is based on my 30 plus years as a senior hospital executive, 6 years in acute care, and then about 24 years working at 2 different hospital associations, where I was involved in all kinds of board meetings, interacting with CEOs, CIOs, clinical staff, people of all up and down the organization. So I have a thorough knowledge of how healthcare works, and serving as a bridge to vendors to help you understand how to avoid some of these problems that I've seen create issues for vendors in the past. So like I said, I'm dealing with actually pitfall number 54, and that's called not fully understanding the overall financial incentives for the healthcare system. Now, I've noticed that vendors correctly try to tap into the trends in the hospital industry, and they sell a lot of their products on the idea that it can save money by coordinating care better, it can help lower length of stay, and one of the latest trends is the need to reduce readmissions, and that's because Medicare implemented a new program a few years ago called the Medicare Hospital Readmission Reduction Program. And what this is a penalties only program that if a hospital exceeds the number of allowable readmissions for certain Medicare patients within 30 days of discharge, then all future Medicare payments for a period of time to that hospital will suffer a penalty, which can be a really big deal. So vendors understand that, and they've tapped into that trend. They've sold their products on that basis. But I wanted to explain some of the nuances of the program because it's not quite as simple as it would seem on the surface. And in order to not appear naive, you need to understand how the program works better. So first of all, there are 5 factors that are involved in determining whether or not this is going to be a penalty situation for the hospital. First of all, which payer is involved? Initially, this program began just with Medicare, and as things often happen, other payers pick up, and other payers are now having similar programs, but every readmission to a hospital is not necessarily problematic. The second factor is what the patient diagnosis is. Initially, the Medicare program started with 6 high-volume diagnostic categories, and other payers are, again, following suit. But again, not every readmission to a hospital is necessarily a problem. The third factor is whether or not the hospital is operating in a fee-for-service environment or if they're assuming full risk for all patient care. If it's a fee-for-service readmission, the hospital actually makes money on that because it's a brand new admission, and they charge again for that readmission. So not all readmissions are necessarily financially negative for the hospital. The fourth one is whether or not any individual readmission would trigger a penalty at all, or move the hospital into a higher penalty category. So the way it works, hospitals are allowed a certain number of admissions without penalty, and there are thresholds that they reach that as they exceed the allowable amounts by different levels, they get kicked into a higher penalty category. So not every readmission is necessarily a problem. Some of them are allowable even within those 6 categories. And then even if they're in a penalty category, there's enough room, some headroom maybe, where they're not going to be kicked up to a higher level. So not every readmission is necessarily a bad thing from the financial penalty standpoint. And then the 5th point is what time frame you're looking at. The way the program is set up, there can be a lag, believe it or not, of up to 4 years before the penalty actually kicks in. And the reality is that some hospitals are so financially stressed, and in some cases they may actually prefer to risk a readmission penalty several years down the road than to lose the revenue that might come because of a given readmission, which is financially favorable at the time. Now, this reminds me of a Dilbert cartoon I saw not too long ago, where Wally the slacker is doing a slide presentation about a new software program that he says, well, we've done the financial planning on it, and it's going to lose money for the first 9 years, but then in year 10, the revenue is just going to spike, and it'll make up for all the loss for the previous 9 years. So the pointy-haired boss is listening to that and says, well, now wait a minute, weren't you planning on retiring in 9 years? So Wally just kind of stands there and has nothing to say because he's been caught. And the point is, he's making a promise that the revenue will be accelerated in year 10, wipe out the losses for the first year, but he's not going to be around to witness whether that happens or not. Now, I'm not suggesting that there's any chicanery or ill will on the hospital part, but the reality is that sometimes the financial need is so urgent and so present that they might be willing to risk some future penalties because they need the money today. So I have 3 suggestions on how to present your product in light of this program if it's a relevant program. First of all, stress the positive impact of your product or service on readmission, because that is an important program to every hospital and health organization. But recognize that the possible impact might be lessened because of these 5 qualifiers I mentioned. And then also recognize that because of these qualifiers, the enthusiasm for your product may be diminished a little bit from what you would think. So again, this is important to tap into this trend, make sure they understand how important your product can be to help address that, but recognize that it's not necessarily a one-for-one. Every readmission you avoid is going to be a justification for them to spend money on your product. So I hope that's helpful. I'll be back in 2 weeks with another video. The next topic is going to be not understanding the misaligned financial incentives in a fee-for-service world, which is related to this topic. I've done previous videos. If you scroll down on the Vimeo screen, you can access previous videos if you're interested in that. And feel free to contact me with any comments or questions. My email address is glenn@pearsonhti.com. That's glenn@pearsonhti.com, or you can always reach me through LinkedIn. So I hope you found this helpful, and stay tuned for future videos. Thanks a lot.